The rain fell softly that morning as Leo stared at the rejection email on his cracked laptop screen. His dream of becoming a writer felt like it was slipping away. He had sent his stories to dozens of publishers, yet every reply was the same: not what we're looking for. He closed the laptop and sighed. The tiny apartment felt colder than usual, as if failure itself had taken a seat beside him. For years, Leo had poured his heart into every word, hoping someone would see what he saw, a voice worth hearing. But the world didn't seem to care. His rent was due, his savings were gone, and the notebook on his desk remained open to a half-finished story. He stared at the page, his pen resting on the edge, unsure whether to write or to finally give up. Then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Clara, his childhood friend. "Hey, still writing? Don't quit yet. Remember what you told me once. Every story deserves a second chance. Maybe that includes yours too." Leo smiled faintly at the words. He whispered them under his breath, almost testing how they felt now. Every story deserves a second chance. The phrase lingered like a soft echo. Maybe, he thought, the story wasn't over yet. Maybe the answer was simple: try again. That night, Leo reopened the notebook. He read through his old stories, ones he had abandoned in frustration. Each sentence carried a piece of him, a memory, a moment of truth. Slowly, he began to rewrite, not from desperation, but from hope. The words came haltingly at first, then faster, flowing like a river breaking through a dam. He lost track of time. By sunrise, pages were filled with ink, his hands trembling, not from exhaustion, but from rediscovering something he thought he'd lost belief. He brewed cheap coffee, staring at the new manuscript. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. For the first time, Leo didn't write to impress anyone. He wrote because he needed to, because stories, like people, only die when we stop telling them. A week later, he found a small online writing contest. No big prizes, no fame, just a chance. He almost deleted the tab, but Clara's words echoed in his mind. Don't quit yet. So, with a deep breath, he clicked submit. Days turned into weeks, no reply. Leo forced himself not to check his email every hour. He took odd jobs, washed dishes, delivered food, and carried a small notebook everywhere, writing between deliveries, in the rain, under streetlights. One night, exhausted from a long shift, he sat at a park bench. A little girl nearby was reading aloud from a library book. Her mother smiled proudly. Leo felt a sting of envy, then warmth. That connection, the joy of words, was why he started. As he watched them, Leo realized something. Success wasn't about recognition. It was about reaching even one heart. Maybe the story he wrote would never win, but maybe it could still matter. Maybe that was enough. He felt peace for the first time. 2 days later, a notification appeared on his phone. Congratulations. You've been selected as a finalist in our annual short story contest. Leo froze. His hands trembled as he read the message again, afraid it might vanish if he blinked. He laughed loudly, uncontrollably. It wasn't about the contest. It was the proof that trying again had changed everything. That one decision to keep going had turned silence into song. He whispered, "Thank you, Clara," and looked out the window. Outside, the rain began again, gentle and rhythmic. It no longer felt cold. It felt like applause, soft but steady. Leo picked up his pen, not to finish his story, but to begin another. Because try again wasn't an ending. It was a way to live. The contest ceremony was held online. When his name appeared on the screen as one of the top 3, Leo smiled through tears. He didn't win first place, but it didn't matter. He had already won something deeper, his own courage back. Messages began to pour in, readers thanking him for writing something that spoke to their hearts. "Your story made me try again," one said. Leo sat quietly, reading each message as if it were a whisper from the universe saying, "Keep going." He realized those 2 words, try again, weren't just for writers or dreamers. They were for everyone who had ever fallen, failed, or felt forgotten. They were a reminder that as long as you breathe, your story isn't over. That night, Leo stood by his window, watching the city lights flicker below. Every light seemed like a heartbeat, a story still unfolding. He smiled and whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I'll write again." And this time, he meant it. The sun rose slowly, painting the city gold. Leo opened his notebook and wrote the first line of his next story. Sometimes, one word can change everything. He paused, then added a second line, softer but stronger. Try again. Months passed, and Leo's story spread quietly across the internet. It wasn't viral, but it found hearts that needed it most. Teachers shared it with students, strangers quoted it online, and one young woman, Maya, read it on a train ride home. Maya was an art student who hadn't painted it in weeks. Her last exhibition had been rejected brutally, and she had sworn never to pick up a brush again. But when she read Leo's story, one line struck her deeply. Every story deserves a second chance. She closed her phone and stared out the window. The reflection looking back at her wasn't just tired, it was empty. "Try again," she whispered. It felt strange, fragile, yet powerful. That night, she took out her old paints and placed a blank canvas before her. The first stroke was hesitant, almost trembling. Then another, and another. The colors blended imperfectly, but they were alive. Hours passed unnoticed. By dawn, Maya's room smelled of paint and hope. For the first time in months, she smiled. Meanwhile, Leo was invited to speak at a small community center. He didn't feel like a success, but he said yes anyway. Standing before a few dozen people, he told his story, not about winning, but about not quitting. The room was silent, listening deeply. Afterward, a teenager approached him, tears in her eyes. "I was going to stop writing," she said softly, "but hearing you, I think I'll try again." Leo felt something shift in his chest. Maybe the story wasn't his anymore. It belonged to everyone. A week later, Maya posted a photo of her painting with the caption, "Thank you to the story that reminded me to try again." Leo stumbled upon it by chance. The colors, bold, chaotic, beautiful, felt like courage splashed on canvas. He sent her a short message. "Your art carries the same message my words tried to say," Maya replied. "Then maybe your words were meant to awaken colors." They smiled through screens, strangers connected by a shared breath of hope. More messages began arriving, people who had started again, musicians, parents, students, dreamers. Every story carried the same heartbeat. Try again had become more than advice. It had become a bridge across broken moments. Leo sat at his desk, surrounded by letters, emails, and sketches sent by strangers. For years, he had wanted recognition. Now, he realized what he truly wanted was resonance. He didn't need fame. He needed connection, and he had found it. One evening, Leo visited a local art gallery. On the far wall hung Maya's painting, titled "The Second Chance." Beneath it, a small card read, "Inspired by a story that told me to try again." Leo stood there quietly, tears threatening to fall. People stopped to admire the piece, unaware that the man watching from the corner was the writer whose words had sparked it. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. The art spoke for them both. Hope transformed into color. Later, Leo and Maya met for coffee. They talked about failure, fear, and how one act of persistence can ripple outward. "You know," Maya said, stirring her cup, "trying again doesn't erase the pain. It gives it purpose." Leo nodded. Their meeting sparked an idea, a collaborative project called Try Again Collective, a space where creators who once gave up could share what happened when they didn't. It started small, an online page, a few stories, a few artworks. But soon, hundreds joined, then thousands. People shared poems, songs, and paintings born from moments of near surrender. The movement wasn't about perfection, it was about permission. Permission to be imperfect and to still continue. One night, as Leo scrolled through new submissions, he paused at a post from a man in his 60s. "I quit music 20 years ago. After reading your story, I picked up my guitar again. My hands hurt, but my soul feels young." Leo smiled. The world felt both vast and intimate at once. Thousands of strangers bound by two simple words: try again. He realized those words didn't belong to him anymore. They belonged to anyone who had ever whispered them in the dark. Months later, Leo stood on stage at a global storytelling event. Cameras, lights, and applause surrounded him. But when he spoke, his tone was gentle. It started with one story, one decision not to quit, one word, try. And it changed everything. As he looked into the audience, he saw faces filled with tears, smiles, and quiet courage. Among them was Maya, holding a small sign that read, "Still trying." Leo's chest tightened. That was the real victory, hope multiplied. That night, Leo returned home and wrote his final note in his old notebook. One person trying again can inspire another. And together, we rewrite the world. He closed it gently, whispering, "Try again," not as advice, but as a promise.